Okay, what's up, everyone? I think we are live. Um, yeah, I am doing this Q&A again because it's a very interesting time for us in the SEO and marketing world, and everybody working at home. And however, your work situation has sort of changed a lot in the last month or two. I'm doing these Q&As because I just really want to help people out there. So if you are watching and you have a question, or if you know of somebody that could benefit from maybe asking a question to an SEO, offering some quick free advice, I would love for you to share this with them, and I'm happy to answer their question. So, to keep things interesting until we start getting some questions in here, which there may or may not be any, we'll find out. I'm going to go chronologically through the SEO headlines on Search Engine Roundtable and kind of give you my reactions to those as if maybe you were a client or somebody coming to me asking for, hey, I saw this headline. What's your take on it as an SEO practitioner? Is it something we need to worry about, pay attention to, focus on? How should we be thinking about this news headline that we're seeing? So I'm going to jump right in and do that. So if you want to follow along with me, you can go to seroundtable.com. I'm going to be looking at that on my mobile device. In the meantime, if you are watching this live and you have a question, you can leave it in the chat area in the live feed in YouTube. So I'm going to get started, and like I said, just ask a question if you have one. I will pause my reactions to the headlines and feedback on those to stop and answer questions. The goal is to answer questions the whole video, of course, but we'll see how many there are. It is 10 a.m. Eastern on a Monday, so perhaps some people are kind of getting started with their work week. So the first headline is Google search algorithm ranking update, possibly around April 16th. So this to me, this didn't pop up on my radar at all. I look at, at least 10 to 15 Search Console and analytics profiles on a regular basis, if not more, if you include kind of the random ones I check in on. And I think we're all seeing traffic shifts, ranking changes, search changes happening very frequently in the last month or two in the age of COVID. So I haven't dove in specifically myself to see if there was an algorithm ranking update. Like I said, the sites and the industries that I pay attention to, so those being right now food delivery, precious metals, a lot of digital content publishers, and some e-commerce, some B2B. I haven't seen anything here. Now, that doesn't mean there wasn't a ranking algorithm update. It didn't pop on my radar. And in general, the way that I approach kind of reacting to or paying attention to algorithm updates is giving them a little bit of time before I necessarily react or draw any sort of conclusion. So, like I said, the first headline here on SE Roundtable is saying there might have been a ranking algorithm update. Again, I'm not taking action or anything like that. Currently, nothing popped on my radar to particularly worry about with clients. And in general, the way I see it is in the long term, if you're really doing the right things strategically, content-wise, technical-wise, keyword-wise, you're not getting yourself into trouble with link issues. Ranking algorithm updates in the last few years, to me, have really been Google sort of re-ranking based upon their query intent, the search intent, the understanding of what a user might mean when they type a keyword. Is it transactional? Is it informational? Does it have a local intent? So it's really more these intent shifts in Google's understanding of keyword searches, whether they're top head keywords or long tail keywords, that to me have really represented, these sort of algorithm updates lately. So again, if you're watching or joining, I'm here to help people out. So as fun as it is for me to just kind of sit here and chat to nobody, staring at my blank wall, what I'd really love is if you're watching or if you know of somebody that could, jump in and ask a question. My goal here is to help people out. I know it's a really tricky time for a lot of people in the world of SEO right now and online marketing. I've been, fortunate to work with a lot of different types of sites in the last, really in my career of doing SEO, but especially in the last month or two, helping them all navigate COVID and all the recent changes. So everything from digital content publishers to food delivery companies to car donation companies to some B2B sites, some consumer sites, some e-commerce, etc. So if you have any kind of question at all about SEO in general or content in general, or how I'm kind of navigating things with my clients during COVID, and anything I could do to help, just feel free to leave a question in the chat. But as long as there are no questions and kind of crickets, I will just continue reacting to some of the recent news headlines. I have not seen these headlines. I don't know what's coming up next. So this is going to be my initial genuine first reaction, as if a client has maybe emailed this article to me asking for my input on it, which does happen a lot. So the next headline is Google testing too many searches related to options. So yeah, I had this reaction as well. I believe this article is referring to, at the bottom, if you can see on my phone, at the bottom of Google search results, you may have seen in the last few days, there are a lot more related searches popping up below the 10 results. And my first reaction to this was, not only was the quantity a lot, but their design and sizing really jumped out in a way where I thought the font, I thought the magnifying glasses were a little large for my taste in terms of their design. But we've seen this before, where Google will test certain design changes or UX changes. It might stick, it might not. Parts of, some of us might be in a Google test. They might fully roll it out, and they might not. So we'll see what happens there. Personally, I hope they don't roll that out. It didn't jump out to me as a particularly, aesthetic change to their search results. We've seen this before. I was not a fan of when they were, I believe, adding the little icon or the little favicons next to search results and bumping the URLs up above the title. I tweeted about that quite a lot. Didn't like that design change at all. I thought that perhaps maybe, I don't know what their intent was, but it did look as if they were maybe trying to draw more clicks to ads, or maybe just confuse what ads were according to in relation to organic results. So that's my reaction to that. Not a huge fan of that design change. The next headline is Google says to limit hreflang implementations to where you have unique content. I mean, my reaction to this is like, well, of course. I don't think this should come as a surprise to many people that, have been doing SEO for a little while, or just apply like you should in most SEO situations. I think you can answer most SEO questions or concerns by just applying a little bit of common sense, a little bit of thinking about it, what would just really make sense from a pure logic standpoint. So I haven't dug into the specifics because I'm just reacting to these headlines spontaneously. But when Google says, oh, by the way, limit your hreflang to where you have unique content, that does jump out as just being something related to common sense. Let's see a little bit more what the context of this particular headline is here. So somebody asked John Mueller, if there are few errors in the hreflang setup of the website, would Google disregard the entire code? For example, if a domain targets 140 regions and 10 of its hreflang attributes are incorrect, will all the other values not be considered? And then John said, no, hreflang is kept on a per pair basis. So if some pairs aren't useful, the rest can still work. That said, 140 regions is almost certainly way too much. So I think this conversation just had to do with, should you be concerned with, if you try to implement hreflang, it flags some errors for some of the instances, but not for all. John's saying that, they're not going to penalize your hreflang entirely, even if it's throwing some errors on some of them. That makes sense. I don't see this as an area where Google would just throw out all your hreflang directives, just if some of them are throwing errors. So as with a lot of SEO headlines, that one's not really, in my opinion, too substantial. So again, if you're joining, my goal here is to help people. I'm hopping online here at 10 a.m. Monday Eastern because I have some extra time. I know there's a lot of people going through challenges with COVID, or maybe just SEO in general, or content, or podcasting, technical stuff. I've kind of seen it all, done a lot in my experience with SEO. So if you have any questions, leave them in the YouTube chat. And if you don't, I'm going to continue just chatting with myself here, staring at a blank wall, reacting to SEO Roundtable headlines. The next headline is Google says too many heading sections is a waste of SEO time. So what this is referring to is H tags, and as I'm sure you can do H1 through H6. I think this, again, is a headline. It is something coming from Google that should just be common sense. In my opinion, H tags should be applied and constructed thinking of or not thinking of SEO at all initially. And what I mean by that is H tags are just there to represent the document structure. So if you're just creating a document, with an outline, you're going to have a title, that's going to be your H1, and then you're going to have subheadings and then sub-subheadings and so on and so forth. You shouldn't be trying to structure your H tags with the goal in mind of how am I supposed to, tweak these for SEO. What you should be doing is creating a structure for your document, for your article, for your blog post, based upon the natural information architecture of that piece of content, allowing those H tags to happen how they normally would. And then what I like to do is make sure to go back and do two things to those H tags. One, in many cases, reiterate the topic, a related topic, or a keyword in that H tag. This is for Google and for users. It helps reinforce the topic you're talking about if you just reference. So if you're writing, an example I cite all the time is on Healthline. They have a really great, Healthline does a really good job at structuring content. And one article you can look up is the benefits of green tea. And each header either says green tea or it references a related co-occurring sort of tangent topic to green tea. So in other words, their headings themselves are very well packed with topical information, with terms that sort of help reinforce what the article and the piece of content is about. This is for Google. It helps Google understand, in my opinion, the topic of the content. As I'm sure we all know, Google is using natural language processing, AI, machine learning, to understand what content is about. They're obviously not just looking at keywords and synonyms and things like that. They're really looking at, okay, if you're talking about green tea, what are the other topics that a quality article about green tea is going to mention? And it's really good to populate your headings with things like that for Google, but also for users. The way I think about it with content is you sort of have three types of people that are going to be looking at your content. Number one, these are people that are just going to scan the headings and really try to quickly take in the information that you're sharing. Number two is the people that might scan the headings and also do a little bit of scanning of the text in between those sections or headings as well. If you provide bullets or maybe anchors or you bold some things, they might not read every word, but they're going to kind of go one level deeper. And then you're going to have the user that's going to read every single word of your piece of content. And of course, for those, having really juicy, detailed headings makes sense, but having a lot of in-depth content in between those headings makes it even better for those users. The second reason to really pay attention to your headings, and again, I'm reacting to John's comment about it being a waste of time to focus on H tags and going too deep into like using H6 tags. And I agree with John's perspective that you don't need to obsess over this from an SEO standpoint. But from a user standpoint, you should also think of your headings as the things that are going to keep the reader wanting to scroll through your content. And you can run tests to see how effective these are performing for you with a tool like Hotjar or just measuring scroll tracking in Google Analytics. So again, reacting to John's comment here about H tags being a waste of time, I agree. If you obsess over these and you are sitting there, if you're spending your time tweaking H tags, hoping that it's going to improve your rankings, that is a waste of time. You're better off spending your time on choosing a really good topic, writing with really good writing, not using run-on sentences, doing really good research, promoting your content. So in the grand scheme of things, H tags are not this big needle mover, but they are important for helping keep the user interested in the content. So again, I know it's Monday morning here, 10 a.m. Eastern. My goal here is to answer questions and help people out if they want help. As I'm sure, if some of you are familiar, I work with a whole range of clients from digital media, B2B, e-commerce, some clients that even have a local SEO component to it while still being national, having a national component as well. So see a lot of different situations. So if you have any questions at all about how I'm thinking about navigating COVID, things that I've seen and been helping clients work through in the last month or so, or any SEO questions at all about content, technical things, even stuff like podcasting or SEO strategy, how to consult better, dealing with clients, how I do proposals, like any of that stuff, feel free to ask a question. Until then, if there's no questions, I'm just going to keep reacting to the recent SE Journal headlines. So we're going to keep going through that. The next headline is Google says, it is good practice to specify a canonical. So again, I think this is for a lot of us, sort of, if you just apply some basic logic, this is kind of a no-brainer. But just to dig into it a little bit, so obviously there's instances where you want to make sure to not use a canonical. And to catch anybody up, of course, a canonical is a hint to Google. It is not a directive. So it's used there to help kind of pull the signals together from multiple pieces of content into one. It's used to, if you syndicate content elsewhere on the web, to give credit back to yourself, or if you're the one taking content, to give credit to the other publication that you took it from. This consolidates signals, but it also, of course, will only show the canonical result in Google. And canonical can be useful for technical applications as well. You know, if you're using campaign tracking, or maybe in the cases of certain parameters like sorting and filtering in an e-commerce website. And John here is basically reacting to somebody on Twitter says, my site is bootstrap based. Do I still need to define a canonical URL for the homepage? And then John says, regardless of the framework, it's good practice to specify a rel equals canonical, especially if you have preferences regarding the URL shown. So I think the headline kind of takes what John says and, you know, maybe slightly alters the intent. So the headline is, it is good practice to specify a canonical. And I think that's a no-brainer of a statement. But John's statement is more about thinking about, you know, does it matter for the framework? And I think what John's really trying to say here is, you know, SEO tags, SEO implications are framework agnostic. So whether you're using WordPress or Shopify or Magento or any CMS, your own custom-built CMS, that's kind of the nice thing about a lot of the SEO tags and the implementation options is they don't really, they don't go against any particular framework. And I think that's John's point here, is that you should just use the canonical tag however you want to. Okay, again here, I'm talking to myself, just reacting to some SE Journal headlines, as if you or a client had sent these to me asking for my feedback on them, which does happen a lot. You know, a lot of times I'll be, you know, obviously working with clients, and they will see SEO headlines out in the wild, whether it be on SEO Roundtable, which is what I'm looking at now, or on Neil Patel's blog, or on Moz, or the SEMrush blog, or anywhere out there on the web, and they'll email those to me, asking, hey, I saw this SEO headline out there. Is this something I need to pay attention to? Should we worry about this at all? You know, how should we be thinking about this headline? So what I'm doing is just kind of giving my reaction to those live, as if you had just emailed these to me as a client. Of course, I am here to, my goal is to help people out. So if you have an SEO question, or you're struggling with how to navigate things during COVID, or even things a little outside of the world of SEO, like working from home, etc., I'm happy to give my 2 cents on that. Going through the headlines here. Some of these are not really headlines. So the next headline is, Google can send manual actions without sample URLs. And this is a headline based upon a tweet that Christine, I'm going to butcher your last name, Christine something, SCHACHINGER, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. She tweeted saying, SEO folks, I'm not seeing any sample URLs. Oh, I see somebody in the chat. Hello. Thanks for saying hi. If you have a question, leave it in the chat, and I will give you my 2 cents on it. Christine tweeted saying, I am not seeing any sample URLs and manual actions on 2 sites. Is this the new normal, or are these just sort of a special case? Yeah, I have time. I'm planning on being here at least another 10 minutes, so if you have a question, drop it in the chat. If we need to go a little bit longer, we can go a little bit longer as well. John's response to this said, it can happen. It depends a bit on the kind of issue and the site. So this is a vague answer from John. I think this is the case where many people that work for Google and the webmaster team and the search analytics team, they have to give a general answer because these things can change a lot. They give a lot of different types of manual actions, some with examples, some without. That might change in the future. There might be outlying cases or situations where somebody like John might not be aware of every specific type of manual action that's being created. So he has to give a broad general answer to kind of cover all the bases and make sure to not say something that will come back to sort of haunt them later. So my takeaway here is, yes, you can receive a manual action from Google even without a URL example. I've seen some interesting manual actions actually come across the desk of some clients or former clients where I just still happen to have Search Console access. One of the more recent ones was manual actions where the manual action was not bad links pointing to the site, but Google telling that site that they are linking to possible bad websites that have a monetary benefit from being linked to. So this is something that was new to me, where Google was giving a manual action saying you have bad links pointing out to other sites. In that case, they did give a URL example after the reconsideration request was denied. So that was a very interesting case where they didn't give an example in the initial manual action, but this site that I have access to that is not currently a client, but I'm seeing the emails kind of go back and forth, did get a URL example in response to the reconsideration request that was denied. So that was very interesting. So I see a couple questions in here, so I'm going to put the SE Journal aside and jump into these. So I hope I don't butcher your name. Maybe it's Manoj, but thank you for the question. It says, a competitor website is ranking for many keywords. Should I use only those rankings on the first page or also look at those rankings on other pages of the SERP? So I am curious if you want to add a little bit more context here to how are you looking to use these rankings from the competitor? Are you looking to find keywords that you want to rank for? Are you just looking to track how you're doing against that competitor? In general, and so leave a little bit more context there, but the way I think about competitors and looking at their rankings is either just one, to measure benchmarks of how my site or my client site is doing against that competitor, or two, to get keyword ideas. So if you're looking to get keyword ideas, that really takes some analysis there. So I would start by looking at where do they rank page number 1. That also aligns to the content or products or services that you would also want to rank for, and use those as a good starting point. If your competitor has a lower domain authority than you or has a worse website for you, okay, so you're finding keywords, so great. So if you're trying to look for keywords, I would think of a competitor in 2 buckets. And this is very important for anybody looking to find keywords based upon competitors. So number 1, you're going to have a product or service competitor. These are competitors that are selling the same products or similar services as you are. So if you're selling shoes, they're selling shoes. If you're selling digital marketing services, they're selling digital marketing services. So you want to find those types of competitors to identify all of your product or service keywords to make sure that you have pages for those. For example, I'm working with a food delivery company that didn't have pages for things like paleo meal delivery services or low carb meal delivery services. We in part identified those by looking at competitors and looking at the pages they have and where they're ranking well. So I wouldn't limit your looking to just page 1, because sometimes a competitor will rank for things on page 2 or page 3 that are relevant to you, but they're just not quite ranking well yet. So I would look, roughly between pages 1 and maybe 3, 4, or 5, but you need to run some other kind of filtering on those, whether it be competition or relevance against your products or services. Now, the second bucket of competitors that you should be collecting and looking for keyword ideas from is what I would call a content competitor. So this is very important to understand because you're going to have competitors that have a similar product or a similar service to you, but there's people that are competing for your space in search results that don't sell your product or service. This might be a blog, it might be a newspaper, it might be a digital publisher, a content producer. These sites are competing for informational or maybe mid-funnel keywords that you might be trying to rank for, or that would be good for you to identify. But again, it's not those product keywords. So you also should collect a second set of competitors, like I said, such as blogs, content producers. Maybe if you're selling software, but your competitor sells service, maybe they even have a blog that relates to content that you would want to publish. In that case, I would spend more time looking for where they are on page 1. But I think really the important question, just to take a step back here, is to make sure you are identifying the right competitor to begin with. I wouldn't highly recommend, like if you're a Domain Authority 30 website, writing about business or selling business software, don't look at what HBR is ranking for on page 1 as a sign of something that you should try to target, because most likely it's going to be too competitive for you. What you want to try to do first is identify the right competitors or content competitors to look for their keywords to begin with. So you should try to find other DA 20, 30, 40, 50-ish sites where they're ranking on page 1, because that's a sign you could rank on page 1 as well in terms of that competition. So that's what I would kind of focus on a little bit more when you're looking for competitors and keywords, is identifying the right competitors to run that analysis on. And then broadly speaking, look on page 1, but look beyond that. Maybe look on page 2, look on page 3, because you might still find relevant keywords in there. And just because that competitor is not ranking well enough on page 1 yet, it doesn't mean that it's not relevant to you. So I hope that helps with that answer. If you want a little bit more context, feel free to leave that in the chat. But we're going to jump into the next question. It's my wife calling. I'm going to tell her I'm live on YouTube. Hello? Hi, I'm live streaming on YouTube right now. I'm doing Q&A. Do you want to say hi to my audience? Okay, I'll call you back. Okay. Okay, bye. So this is live streaming. The only person I let interrupt things is my wife. So the next question says, I want to start a blog in a car niche that will be monetized by AdSense, and I'm looking to do keyword research. Can you recommend any A to Z guides on doing one? I found your tutorial that is 3 years old. Yeah, so by the way, most of the keyword research tutorials that I have out there are still very relevant today. You might see UI differences in the tools, or things may have changed in regards to like the tools and that kind of thing, but the strategies can still be applicable. So I just want to mention that. So if you want to dig back into some older videos on my YouTube channel, all those strategies are still relevant. I still use a lot of those processes to this day. Like I said, I might tweak things based upon the tool, but they're still very relevant. So you want to start a blog in a car niche. So and monetize by AdSense. So yeah, so you really want to like identify your initial things that you're going to write about. So you have the benefit because you're kind of starting clean slate. So the first thing I would really recommend, because the car space is going to be fairly competitive, it's probably not going to be as saturated as like writing about marketing or writing about health and nutrition, but probably fairly competitive. So what I would really think about is 2 categories of keywords, and then I'll get into more tactical things. But one is I would identify some more evergreen car topics that have been around for a while, because those could be core pillars of things that you write about. Okay, so I don't know what aspect of cars you want to write about, if it's like more like looking at cars from a consumer standpoint, like writing about like new cars coming out, maybe reviewing them, maybe talking about performance and their design and like things like that. Or I don't know if it's more about like car repair and car maintenance and stuff like that. So if you do want to leave a little bit more context, feel free to do that. But either way, try to identify 4 to 5 main broad topical areas that you really can own as an expert, whether you are an expert or whether you're just extra passionate about those specific areas. Because the mistake I see a lot of people making when they're starting a blog is they're going way too broad, right? So a car is a very broad topic. So if you have a specific niche focus and you want to let me know in the chat, feel free to add that context. But if not, I would identify even just 2 or 3 a little bit more specific topical areas. I think there's a ghost because my door just opened and there's nobody in the building. But then this is the key part for you. Number 2 is I would really try to identify newer car topics that have not been written about as much. And this is very important because your strategic advantage when you're a brand new site is you need to go for topics that are not as competitive and that are maybe breaking out in the car space. So use a tool like Google Trends to find maybe car topics that are newer or haven't been written about or searched about as much. Because, if you just jump right into, writing about Mercedes or like things that have been written about a lot already, you're going to have some trouble because there's going to be more competition there. So I think Google Trends is really going to be your friend. I would also research and find the 10 to 20 other new car blogs. And again, whether it's talking about car repair or more consumer stuff about like, the fun aspects of cars, like choosing one or their drivability or like whatever it is, so you definitely, so the person said that they don't have a specific topic at the moment, maybe they should find one. I'm planning to build an authority website, adding 2,000 words per day as a plan. Great. Yes, I would recommend trying to, at least initially, drill into a couple more specific areas. This is going to help your SEO, but it's also going to help you stand out for readers because there's a million car blogs out there and they are going to look for a way to see how you're different and differentiated from all the other car blogs. So yeah, I would spend some time thinking about what's a couple niche topic areas about cars you can focus on initially that also have some search volume and, like I said, maybe some newer trending search volume that have not been covered as much. So what I would really do is find the other 10 to 20 newer or lower authority car blogs that might have a similar niche you want to focus on. Find those, look for ones that have a DA of like 20 or 30. Look for ones that are also ranking and getting search traffic even though they have a low DA. And those could represent really good specific article topics for you or general topics that you might write about. Again, because you're going to have a really hard time competing with the older, bigger, more authoritative car blogs. The other thing I would do is spend a lot of time, if you're not already, in forums, places like Reddit, Quora, even social media. A lot of my clients have gotten the best new exploding topic ideas by just really communicating with their audience directly. An example I'll never forget is a couple years ago I was helping the website Mark's Daily Apple. It's one of the oldest paleo, it was initially a paleo blog, now it's more general health and nutrition, and they also own the company Primal Kitchen that sells food products. One of their most popular blog topics of all time was, does coffee break a fast? And I believe they still rank really well for that in Google. Driven a lot of traffic for them. We didn't find that topic through keyword research necessarily. We found that topic because all their readers were asking about it. And I'll get to your follow-up question in a second. So we were paying attention to the audience and this newer stuff they were asking about. And they were asking about if coffee broke a fast. And then we used SEO to vet that topic. We saw that it had ranking potential because there wasn't a lot of competition, and we did see new trending search volume for that topic. So your follow-up question is how to find those new blogs in your niche. So, you can really just start with Google. You can just search car blogs, and you can search a car topic and then do in URL :blog. So you might be looking for an article written around that topic that has blog in the URL, and that often will indicate that it's a blog. You can also go to like a tool like BuzzSumo and enter car topics in there. And BuzzSumo is going to show you the most popular articles by social media shares. And it's segmented by Facebook, by Twitter, etc. And very often these might be newer sites, because sites that get a lot of social media activity and social media buzz aren't necessarily the same ones that are getting search traffic. And so you can often uncover those there. And again, I would also just kind of get into the weeds in the forums like Reddit, Quora, maybe look for some other car communities in Facebook. I would just ask around too, like pretend you're somebody that's a consumer that's looking for the newest car blogs. Maybe find a Facebook group or a Slack channel and jump in there and say, hey, I'm really interested in cars. What are your new favorite car blogs? Right? So you can just ask around and ask people, and I think that's a really good way as well. You can also take any existing car blog or car-related website, put it in SEMrush, and go to the competitor report. And SEMrush is going to give you all the sites that rank for similar keywords. And often if you scroll down and look for ones that are maybe lower in keywords or lower in traffic, those might be new as well. So there's a lot of ways to find these, asking people in forums, just doing Google searches, looking in social media, using tools like SEMrush that show you competitor sites. So there's a whole ton of ways to do that. I hope those few tips are helpful. But then, once that would be my tip for you, is to really zone in on that niche topic, maybe something newer or trending in the world of cars. All the videos that I have that you saw from even 2 or 3 years ago that teach how to do a competitive analysis to tell if you can rank for something, those are all still very, very relevant. But I think, honestly, like as I'm talking through it, I would really begin at looking at those forum questions. Looking at the questions people are asking now, because oftentimes people will go to the forums when there aren't answers on Google yet, or Facebook groups or even social media. So I would do that. I would spend some time just really like getting to know the consumer. If any of you are familiar with the site examine.com, yeah, no problem. Examine.com is one of the most popular nutrition and health websites now. That website began because they were just interacting on Reddit, answering a lot of questions. And so many people were asking questions that the answers were not available for. They just went and created the website. So that happened in a very organic way. So yeah, it's a great question. There's another question from Manoj, and I'm going to answer that. And if there are anybody else that has questions that you want to pop in and ask, I'll stay here the whole hour. If not, I'll answer this question, and then we'll wrap things up if there are no other questions. But I'm here for the whole hour if people also have more questions. So Manoj says, while doing local SEO, I found that local business directories are occupying the major part of the SERPs. Can a business website outrank them? This is really where search intent matters a lot. So unfortunately now, for good or for bad, these local sites, whether they're Yelp or whether they're more niche oriented. For example, I worked with a site called Healthy Hearing for a long time that is sort of the Yelp for audiologists. I currently work for Wheels for Wishes, where they are, they represent all the different local chapters of donating cars for that benefit children. Search intent matters here a lot. And I think you can outrank the directory sites if you identify the right local searches with the right local search intent. And depending upon the local industry that you're in, there might not be a lot of these. So you might really need to, make sure you're visible in these directories, right? Because people are going to look at the directories and then look at the results in those directories. So, I also work with a lot of sites that do education lead generation. So they are the sites that are ranking instead of the colleges in many cases. So if you're a college or a private school in that case, you need to make sure that you're in those directories and ranking really well in those directories. But yeah, I would spend some time looking for local searches that when you run those, you see more local businesses ranking rather than the directories, or at least you see them mixed in. So again, it depends upon the search intent, and this is going to be fluid. It's going to change based upon Google's algorithm and their understanding of that search intent. And it's also going to change based upon the search query and like where the user's searching from. So if I'm sitting in Massachusetts, but I'm Googling, let's say, music school in Los Angeles, what I notice is I'm likely to see more of these directory sites. But if I'm sitting in Los Angeles and I just Google music school, and this just might be my anecdotal observation, I might see more of those local businesses. So what I would really highly recommend is getting a rank tracker where you can track your local rankings in specific zip codes. I don't know if you're just working on local SEO, that's maybe you just have one business in mind and it's just one location, but I would absolutely make sure to track all your rankings in in that specific zip code, because you might be ranking or visible in a different way depending upon how you're doing that. So if you're just going to Google and manually checking, you might see more directory sites when in fact in reality you might actually be ranking better in a real situation. Also, you should be tracking your rankings on mobile devices as well, nationally and in certain zip codes. So that's kind of the one caveat there, is to make sure you're looking at this accurately, because these local rankings can be super fluid and they change very often depending upon where you're searching from, the device, if you type the city name in the search query itself, and the specific niche you're in. So it is possible, but I think, again, it's very fluid and you want to just be careful that you have the right data. But number two, this is where really paying attention to your map rankings can be your big win and your benefit, because these directory sites are not going to rank in the map listings in most cases. You don't see Yelp ranking in a Google Map pack or in Google Maps, natively. So I would spend a lot of time optimizing for your map rankings. And this is not an aspect of SEO I do a lot, so definitely check out like localvisibilitysystem.net, or no, localvisibilitysystem, it's like .com or .net or something. You can just Google it. Phil runs a really great local SEO website with all of the map rankings, local SEO tips, etc. So I would spend some time reviewing that to focus on your map rankings. So I would think about this strategically and holistically, because you're not always going to be able to outrank the directories, but you can beat them by ranking for map listings. And then you can also, if they say if you can't beat them, join them. So you should also focus on how well you rank and create visibility within those ecosystems, whether it's trying to rank better on Yelp or in whatever listing site is in your niche, and also making sure to spend time working on your reputation inside of those listing sites as well, whether it's responding to reviews, updating your listings, making sure there's photos, all the information's accurate and up to date, like all that stuff. That's very important as well. So, Manoj, I hope that helps out. If there was something more specific about that I can answer, let me know. But that's kind of my general thoughts around the map ranking stuff and the local ranking stuff. So, this is great. I feel super happy and satisfied when there's even just a few people in here that I can help out, answer some questions for. If there are more follow-ups, just let me know real quick here. My goal, like I said, is to spend a little bit of extra time that I have helping people out, especially, as you're navigating things during COVID, or just, this is just a tricky time in general for a lot of us. So that's my goal, just here to help. And it's definitely fun for me as well. But no problem. I'm glad that you were able to join, and then that was helpful. So I'm going to give it maybe like 30 more seconds. If there are no other people with no other questions, we're going to wrap things up there for today. Like I said, I'm here and happy to hang out for the whole hour. But no need just sort of dragging it on if that's it for questions for today. I might settle into doing this in a routine, maybe every other Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. That time seems to work out well for some people. I know that's a good time for me. Maybe it helps you kind of jumpstart your SEO week. Speaking of jumpstarts, if anybody is still watching this long into the video, I just want to point out that on my website, evolvingseo.com, I do have a variety of ways that I help people out. One thing I'm going to be doing again is, just a week or two ago, I raised some money for a local business here in Worcester by doing some heavily discounted hourly consulting. Any guide for voice SEO. So honestly, I would look at Mobile Moxie's Cindy Crum from Mobile Moxie wrote some really good content about voice SEO, and there's a couple episodes of my podcast about voice SEO. One with Cindy. So just Google Cindy Crum Evolving SEO Podcast or Experts on the Wire podcast. And there was also an episode about podcasting SEO as well, which does relate to voice SEO on my podcast. So I would Google for those and then look for Mobile Moxie's Guide to Voice SEO and Audio SEO as well. It's a really great resource. Probably in a few weeks, I'm going to be doing some heavily discounted hourly consulting, which I don't normally do at all. And that money will benefit, 100% of it will benefit a local business here in Massachusetts that is trying to get through COVID. So keep an eye on Twitter, or if that's something you're interested in, just hit me up now on Twitter, or you can email me, dan@evolvingseo.com, and we can possibly set something up. And then I also do these one-day SEO jumpstarts, which are on my website as well. Those are, very packed, sort of focused service for one day. So if anybody's interested in checking that out as well, you can do that. I've done well over 75 of these in the last couple of years. So they've been very popular and something that's been working out very well. So that's it. I'm going to sign off for now. Thanks for everyone that asked a couple questions. I hope this was helpful, and we'll possibly see you 2 weeks from now, Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. I will post that in the feed here, and I hope you all have a great Monday and a great week. Thank you.